Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Brandy, a weekly show where we talk personal and business finance, taxes, and how to make money doing what you love. I'm your host and bookkeeper Brandy Miron, and this is episode number 15. This video is part 3 of our continuing series of how to start a business or what to do when you're starting a business. So this is the third part. So if you haven't watched part 1 and 2, which are episodes 13 and 14, I suggest that you watch those first before watching this one. Again, in this episode, I will be referencing the checklist on my website called Business Startup Checklist, I believe. So use that resource as well. And this episode, we're kind of in the third trimester of our pregnancy. So we're just about ready to launch and we're tying up the final loose ends to make sure that we get started on a right foot. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is ensuring that funds are available. So when we kind of went through our financial forecast before, I asked you to come up with a rough idea of the capital that would be required to get started on your business. So now we're going to kind of talk about ways that you can find and secure that funding. So there's 3 kind of major sources for funding that I will go into. So the first one is grants or non-equity investments. So those would be something that I would recommend, the first source that if that's available to you, I would go to first, because that is going to have the least impact on your bottom line. I will link a kind of like a whole plethora of sources for you to look through, including the Government of Canada Grant Finder and some different types of searches that you can go through for grants in Alberta specifically, but all through Canada. So look for that link later, but I would also suggest doing some research on some crowdfunding places. So think Kickstarter or GoFundMe. Basically what these kind of places are doing is giving you funding that isn't in exchange for any part ownership of the business. And also you typically don't have to pay it back. So either a grant or crowdfunding sort of a situation would be great because you don't have to pay it back. However, that type of funding would be taxable income for the business, okay? The second type of funding that I want to talk about is equity investing or capital investment. So if you've ever watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, this is the kind of deal that they're usually doing is investment that comes with capital. So that means that you are trading the funding or the money for part ownership in your company. And that can look 100 million different ways, from non-voting shares, voting shares, you might pay them royalties or something like that. So that's gonna be different all across the board. But again, I will link some sources for you to look at through there. Typically, capital investments are not considered taxable income to the business because you are trading a portion of the ownership or shares in return for the funding. Now, if that investment grows and you pay dividends back to that investor, that would become personally taxable to them, but the initial funding typically is not, okay? The third type of financing or funding that you could get is, of course, a loan or credit of some kind. So there are many sources for getting that type of repayable financing, but obviously your bank, that kind of thing. But I want to specifically mention a company called Futurepreneur and also BDC, which is the Business Development of Canada. So they specifically only fund small businesses and startups and that kind of thing. So they usually have a lot looser rules than a bank would. The other thing I kind of want to mention is interest-wise, it's always a good idea to try to get something that is like a non-interest bearing loan. It's just going to cost you less money to borrow that money. So think friends and family. Funding that you receive from loans is not taxable income, and the repayments that you make on those loans are not taxable deductions, but the interest and any like loan fees or bank fees that you would have to pay on that would be tax deductible, okay? So keep in mind that with any of these options, you are likely going to be required to have a full business plan, okay? This ensures to both you and your investor or financer that the business has a plan in place to either repay that loan or use the investment wisely without going under. So I will point out, and it's on the checklist as well, the link, is that Futurepreneur that has on their website a tool that is a business plan writer. So I would suggest using that to get started. It kind of gives you a good outline. I'm also always seeing workshops and things pop up, so I try to share those on my page as much as possible. In my opinion, so you can have a professional write your business plan, but in my opinion, I think it's best if the business owner writes it. Like, getting an outline again from a tool on like Futurepreneur or even a professional providing you with an outline is a good thing, but really it's your baby. Like, the plan should be coming from you in your words, and it forces you to think about things that maybe you wouldn't have thought about, which is going to be super helpful to you when you're running your business, okay? And also remember, just because you write a business plan once doesn't mean that it's set in stone. Business plans are meant to evolve and change over time, just like your business does, okay? So that's the funding part of it. So the second part that we're going to talk about today is systems and processes. So in my opinion and experience, this is probably one of the biggest areas that gets ignored when you're just in the launch phase of business. It's usually something that people try to deal with further down the road. So as like once a problem comes up or something is changing in the business, so let's say you're going from just you like a solo situation to trying to hire somebody, then they're scrambling to be like, okay, I got to get all of these processes and workflows and systems out of my head and into something that somebody else can read. I think that if you could start your business with these basic plans in place, and so I'm talking about writing them down, having them in some sort of central document, that would that would prevent so many problems and headaches down the road. So that's why I kind of want to mention it here. So first of all, like right now, you have the time to really sit down and think about these things, where maybe, months or years down the road when you're knee deep in business and, you're trying to hire somebody or something like that, you're probably not going to have the time or energy to be doing this. Again, second, it's good to have these basics in place. So here are some of the processes and policies that you should be thinking about right now. Operating hours, key suppliers, contingency plans, seasonal adjustments. So if your business is super seasonal, like you're a gardener or something like that, you should have some kind of plan for cash flow or creating off-season income. Locations. So of course, are you working out of your home? Are you going to be in an office or just online? Procedures for onboarding clients, customer service policies. So if you're selling a product, you're going to want to put your policies in place right now for returns, shipping, reminders for your clients, that kind of thing. Inventory and accounting processes. So if there's more than one of you working on the business, who is going to do what there? If it's just you, are you going to set aside dates to, check on your inventory or do your accounting processes? Staffing. So you're going to want to identify your employee and contractor needs. What is the profile of an ideal employee or contractor? What will your recruitment and hiring processes look like? How will you train? How much will you pay? What benefits will you offer? Do you need contracts or non-disclosures in place? I think I might do an entire video on this subject, like what employers need to know. So let me know if that is something that you think would be helpful. And then the last kind of thing, and this is really broad, but setting up workflows for anything that you do repeatedly, okay? So for example, if you're a maker and you always make the same soap over and over again, write that recipe down. Make sure that you have those instructions and that recipe in place. It's valuable because if you ever go to sell that business, or like I say, hire an employee to do that, you have that process in place. B, if something happens to you and you're incapacitated or otherwise, that information isn't gone along with you, right? For me, I like to have workflows in place for things that I do over and over. For example, if I'm doing client onboarding, for example, I always do the same thing. I always do the same discovery checklist with them. I always do the same kind of proposal email, that kind of thing. So it's nice to have that workflow in place. So again, if someone ever does it for me, or, I think I've got my point across there. Okay, so the next one is setting up to operate. So this is the time that you're spending searching for, moving into, possibly renovating, or otherwise preparing your workspace. So even if you're working from home, online, or even from your vehicle, there is some planning still at play. So at the very least, you should have a filing system in place for your business's receipts and statements where the risk of damage is limited. So see my episode 1, which is how to organize your paperwork, for more information on this. But like, even if you're just working out of your truck, you're probably going to want to have one of those big plastic tubs with hanging files in it so that you can organize your receipts in an appropriate manner right from your truck, right? And maybe you would want like a rugged case for your laptop or tablet, right? Like, these are just things to think about, even if you're like, yo, I'm just going to work out of my truck, I don't need to worry about my workspace. Well, maybe you do. Some other things that may need to be considered are computers, workstations, office furniture, your telephone, fax, email situation, inventory storage solution, point of sale system. So like if you want to set up a debit machine, client meeting area, signage and banners, your security system, your employee break area and bathrooms, and client bathrooms as well, and the design and layout of your office area. Okay, so again, this is also when you're hiring and training staff before the door opens, right? That's going to be your best chance for success, is if you've made all these plans ahead of time. Okay, so now we're into marketing your launch. Now, I'm a bookkeeper and tax preparer. I do not consider myself a marketing expert by any stretch of the imagination, but of course it's a huge part of business. Like sales, no matter what industry you're in, sales is going to be part of your business, whether you want it to be or not, okay? I've learned a lot about this running my own business, of course, my collective experience working with all of my clients as well. So I'll kind of tell you through my filter what I think is really important when marketing your business, and particularly, of course, the launch of your business, okay? So the number one thing is pre-launch. You want to determine where you want to be positioned in the marketplace. So what I mean by this is, chances are there's somebody out there that's already doing the same thing as you. So how do you want your potential clients to compare you to that other competitor? Okay, so you can position yourself based on price, or quality, or location, or customer service, whatever. Start with your values and what is important to your ideal client and work from there. Okay, but this is a great time to, because you're doing your branding now. You are printing your marketing material, right? So you want to start with that position in mind. Okay, the second one, and this is accounting related, is tracking your ROI, or return on investment. So of course, you know that I am profit focused. So I want to make sure that whatever marketing strategy you use, you are tracking the profitability around it. So I have found the best way for me personally to track this is to make sure that I'm asking my potential clients. So when I get somebody calling me and saying, I'm interested in your services, I ask them, how did you hear about me? That way I know that sale, if I make the sale, is based on this marketing source. Okay, so for example, if I spend $100 on Facebook ads and I know that I get 2 sales out of it, totaling $150, then I know I've made $50 on that marketing campaign. Okay, so that's just the point I'm trying to get across, is try to track that kind of thing so that you're not just aimlessly throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what will stick, right? The third one here is deeply understanding your clients. So one of the major things that I think I've learned on my personal journey is that when it comes to marketing, you really need to make sure that you know that the client is the hero and you are the guide. So don't market yourself as the hero. Okay, you're there to help them solve the problem. So if you can get your mind around that, I think that you will find success in your marketing. So it's really important for you to be the best guide possible for your ideal client. It's really important for you to understand their wants and needs. So this is everything from the way that you talk to them, the words that you use in your copy, your logo, how bright the light is in your facility, like everything. And this is why I've kind of talked about in previous episodes, is it's so important to do that market research and to really realize what's important to these clients. And it's not just, price, it's the whole package, okay? Confidence and believing in what you do. So for me, I think probably for a lot of people, this is the biggest kind of lifelong learning and growing thing that comes with owning your own business. So you need to be able to stand behind what you do. And a lot of times that means believing in yourself and your product or your service. You really, truly need to know that what you're offering is important and it's worthy of somebody else trading their money for it, okay? So this, especially in the beginning, I think it can be hard. Confidence doesn't come from nowhere. Confidence comes from being in the trenches and experiencing sometimes failure and sometimes maybe criticism, okay? So when you're out there doing it and your confidence grows, your sales ability will grow as well. So I guess the point that I'm trying to get across here is I don't want any of you thinking, I am sucky at sales, I just had a super sucky sales call, or I cannot do this marketing side, so I'm gonna just fail epically at this entire business. That is not true. Your confidence will grow with time. That skill will grow with time. Sales is just a muscle that we have to flex when we run a business. So whether you feel like you're naturally good at it or not, and I don't think I'm naturally good at sales, but it's just something, if you're offering the value and you have the confidence that stands behind it, people will want to buy from you. So just remember that. And I hope that you can think of this video the next time that you have a sucky sales call and think that you are a failure, because you're not. Tactically, the steps in this area that you would want to follow are, again, preparing your business cards, your brochures, your printed marketing material, posting on social media. Like I said in the last episode, if this is your strong suit, awesome. If it's not, there are tons of professional options that you can look at. Investigate email marketing, blogs, and SEO strategies, so search engine optimization strategies, to drive traffic to your website. If your business is going to have any kind of online presence, I would recommend look up a woman named Amy Porterfield. She's a bit of an online marketing guru. I follow her podcasts and things, and she a lot of her advice has been very helpful for me, so I think that you would probably like it as well. Research networking opportunities in your area. So I know for a lot of you, especially people who are consider themselves shy or introverted, networking isn't maybe something that you feel comfortable with. And I totally get that. I think one of the things that has really helped me with networking is when you go to an event where there's a lot of people, don't make it your goal to just get as many business cards as possible. I think go in and just say to yourself, I'm just going to find one kind of kindred spirit. And I feel like finding that person is actually pretty easy. Like if you go into a room with 30 people, you can probably spot somebody that you think you would get along with. Beeline to them and make that your goal to just have a conversation with that person and follow up with them and build that relationship with just one. I think that having a deeper relationship with one person versus a very shallow relationship with 30 people is going to bring you more success. That's just my opinion, but that's been my experience. If for some industries you could research news and press releases to get the word out there that your business is launching, and just in general create a buzz, be excited and get other people excited, and of course don't let the haters get you down. So that is it for today. Next week is you've launched your business, so we're going to talk about having that baby and getting started, and our tips on running and growing the business and how to audit proof yourself. So that will be really a lot of information talking about taxes and making sure that you're minimizing your tax burden, and of course how to maintain your own entrepreneurial health and wellness. Okay, so I'm excited for that, and we will see you then.